Hello guys, today we are talking about the later years of Queen Victoria's reign. When Prince Albert tragically died, Queen Victoria, in 1861, Queen Victoria withdrew from society. The main power was played by the two parties that alternatively were in office. That were the Liberal Party on one side, that had been in the past the Whigs, that was the party that supported and was supported by the middle class. So in the past they were called Whigs, and that included the radicals, the middle class, the businessmen, and so on. And this party was led by William Gladstone. And the other main party was the Conservative Party, that had been the Tories in the past. That was the party that had supported the crown, and that had the crown and the aristocracy, and that had as its leader Benjamin Disraeli. So, Disraeli was prime minister in a short period between 1868, exactly between February and the 1st of December 1868. In his second office was between 1874 and 1880. During this government, he passed important acts. The first one was in 1874, the Artisans and Labourers Dwelling Act. Dwellings means abitazioni, case, and which allowed local public authorities to clear the slums, to clean the slums, and to provide the houses also for the poor. And the Public Health Act that was passed in 1875 that provided sanitation, that is hygiene, as well as running water, acqua corrente, in the slums. Another important act that was passed in this second government by Disraeli was the Factory Act of 1878 that limited the working hours per week of the workers. As for the foreign policies, la politica estera, it was the political atmosphere was dominated by the Eastern question that had followed the decay of the Ottoman Empire. We said that Britain had been involved in the Crimean War in the period between 1853 and 1856, that had followed the fall of the Turkish Ottoman Empire. And but also in the following years, Britain and France fought against Russia to take possession of the territories that in the past belonged to the Ottoman Empire. And also Disraeli, as for his foreign policy, in 1875 he encouraged the purchase, l'acquisto of more shares, azioni, in the Suez Canal Company to protect Britain's route, and so Britain's trades with the East, to and fro the East. William Gladstone was the leader of the Labour Party, as I told you first, and he was in office 4 times. The first time was between the 3rd of December 1868, that is when Disraeli's government fell, and 1874. And in this period, some important acts were passed. The first one was the Education Act that started a national system by introducing boarding schools that were sort of modern colleges, that are schools that were introduced in the poorer areas of the towns, where students could not only study but also live. And by 1880, elementary education became compulsory also for the poor. Another important act was the Trade Union Act of 1871 that followed in the same during the same government by Gladstone. It made the trade unions, I sindacati, legal again, and also in 1872 the Ballot Act followed that made the vote secret, and that was very important to limit the corruption of the politicians. In the period in the government between 1880 and 1885, that was the second office of Gladstone, there was the third Reform Act of 1884 that extended voting to all householders, that is, tutti I proprietari, tutti I capofamiglia maschi, so it extended the vote also to the poorest social classes such as miners, mill workers and farm laborers, but only to men. And during the government of Disraeli, there was also the Irish question. The Irish question. Ireland wanted the independence, led by Charles Stewart Parnell, wanted independence from Britain and wanted its own home rule, that is a self-government. Gladstone supported this claim and tried to pass a bill in favor of this claim 3 times, but without success. And so the Irish governor was granted independence only after the First World War. In the later years of Victoria's reign, the condition of Victorian cities had notably evolved. Apart from a better hygiene, running water, also gas lighting was introduced, rubbish collection, la raccolta dei rifiuti, and many public buildings were built also to encourage the talents and the tastes of the poorer classes, as John Stuart Mill had considered very important for government to encourage. And so there was the building of libraries, museums, railway stations, town halls, municipi, boarding schools, hospitals, police stations, prisons, but also public houses that are the modern pubs, and the theaters that notably improved the condition of the lower social classes. As for the women, they could be involved in, could have interests also outside the family, but also for what concerned the voluntary charitable work, the campaigns against prostitution, and could work as teachers. That was considered a respectable job for a woman. But there was still the problem of education, because schools and colleges were only for men, and only in the 1870s colleges for women were introduced. Besides, only with the 1882 married women's property during one of Gladstone's governments, women were given complete authority on their properties. That is, women could administer their own property independently of their husbands for the first time. But in spite of this progress, in the late Victorian period, many thinkers started to question the success of this period, the optimism of and the stability of the Victorian society. And, for example, Karl Marx based his own theories that he expressed in Das Kapital upon a research done in England, just because it was in England that the Industrial Revolution had developed for the first time, and also the drawbacks of the Industrial Revolution were seen. And his works influenced also some English writers, such as the art critic John Ruskin, that criticized the grid, the competition, the ugliness of the industrial society, and also some artists such as William Morris that started to question the ugliness, to highlight the ugliness of the industrial society, and wanted a different form of progress that was a blend of utopia and nostalgia for the past, for the Gothic, and a criticism of the inhumanity of industrialization. And he even set up a firm, un'azienda, to produce craft-made furniture, that is mobili costruiti in modo artigianale, and the same for wallpaper and other decorative objects, as a reaction to utilitarian mass-produced goods. During this period there was also the birth of the Fabian Society, exactly in 1884. It was a middle-class socialist group whose members aimed at transforming Britain into a socialist state, but not through revolution as Marx had suggested, but through a systematic progressive series of reforms. And also in 1893, that was the last government by Gladstone, there was the birth of the Independent Labour Party. That was a third party that, of course, was on the side of the workers.